and welcome to Shared Reading. We are continuing into our unit of how can government influence the way we live. We have a super exciting story of government in action. So as you're listening to today's story, I want you to think about how the government is working to help these people and how they are influencing the way these people live. Today, as we read, we're going to gather key events happening in the story. We're also interested in the characters and how they add to the story. We're looking at their actions, their thoughts, and what they're saying to help analyze them and to see how they interact with each other. Follow along as I read the story of the first town meeting. This is an excerpt from The People of Sparks by Janine Despois. The People of Sparks is the second title in the Books of Ember science fiction series. The book is set in a not-so-distant future in which war has devastated Earth. It tells the story of a group of people who have emerged, tired and hungry, from an underground city. They have left their city because they can no longer produce electricity there. They head the settlement of Sparks, or they find the settlement of Sparks, where they are welcomed and fed. But the town's resources are limited. How long will the townspeople let the newcomers stay? In this excerpt from part 1 of the book, a town meeting is held to decide their fate. While Lena slept, the 3 town leaders were holding a meeting. They sat at a table in the tower room of the town hall, which looked out over the plaza. Mary's hands were clasped tightly in front of her. Ben scowled, his gray eyebrows bunched together, deepening the 2 lines between them. Wilmer pulled nervously on one ear and looked from Mary to Ben and back to Mary. "They can't stay here," said Mary. "There are too many of them. Where would we put them? How would we feed them?" "Yeah," said Wilmer, "but where can they go?" No one spoke. They had no answer for that question. Outside the settlement of Sparks, the empty land stretched for miles in all directions. They could go up to Pine Gap," said Wilmer. "Maybe." Mary snorted and shook her head. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "That's at least 2 weeks walk away. How could these feeble people travel that far? How could they carry enough food with them? Where would they get enough food? Unless we emptied our storehouse and gave them everything." Wilmer nodded, knowing she was right. The people of Sparks knew of only 3 other settlements. They had heard from the roamers that those places were smaller and poorer than Sparks. Their inhabitants wouldn't want extra mouths to feed either. The 3 of them gazed out the window and down at the moonlit plaza, filled with strange sleeping people from a city under the earth. 400 of them, with no food, no possessions to speak of, and nowhere to go. As we read the first town meeting, there are quite a few things that jumped out. So in this first paragraph here, where it's in italics, it's kind of giving me background information of what happened before this part of the story happens. And in that, I kind of find out that new people arise in the city, so the townspeople are deciding what to do. As I continue reading, I realize that there are 3 town leaders who are holding a meeting. They are realizing that these new people can't stay here, but they're questioning of where they could go and what they could do. And no one really has an answer yet. So we have a problem, but we have no solution yet. Then as I continue reading in paragraph 5, Wilmer comes up with the solution. He thinks maybe Pine Gap. Mary kind of shuts that down. She said that, yeah, it's 2 weeks away, just walking. They're super tired and weak, feeble, feeling weak. They can't do that. So, as a key event, I'm realizing that town leaders are trying to find solutions, but not one has been found yet. What I'm very interested in realizing is these 3 town leaders that popped up. We have Mary, Ben, and Wilmer. In this first few paragraphs that we read, we actually realized a lot about them. Mary says Mary's hands were clasped tightly in front of her. And also, she started questioning things in paragraph 2, saying, where do we put them? How do we feed them? So up in the chart, I wrote her actions where her hands were clasped tightly and that she was questioning a lot. My analysis of her turns out to be that Mary seems really tense and she's worried about the people that came. Wilmer, our other town leader, is pulling nervously on one ear and looking from Mary to Ben and back to Mary. He even questions, where can they go? So in his actions, I wrote pulling ear nervously, asking about the people's future. And this lets me know that Wilmer is nervous and he's sympathetic towards these people. He's really worried about them. And then we have our last town leader, Ben. In here, Ben is scowling, he's got his eyebrows bunched. He doesn't say much here. So I want you to write his actions in, and what does that tell us about Ben? This story is not over yet. We are continuing reading tomorrow. But first, I want you to think, what if you were one of the town's leaders? What would you decide to do? How would you be acting? Would you be nervously pulling on your ear like Wilmer is? Would you be kind of really tense like Mary? Would you be like Ben, scowling a bit? Let me know. Can't wait to read the rest of the story tomorrow.